Everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is me, the Layman Apologist, and today I am here with something very different. I don't normally tackle this type of stuff on my channel. However, a clip was sent to me by a supporter from podcast Trent Horn had recently with God Logic on it, and they pointed out an argument that Trent made against Protestantism. Now, like I said, I don't normally deal with this stuff on here. There's people far better equipped on YouTube, some of my friends that I could point you to, that if you want to tackle Protestant, Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox relations, there's people I could send you to that'd be far better equipped to deal with that. However, I thought I would take a crack at actually answering Trent's objection today because, in a sense, I actually kind of agree with Trent's objection, in a sense. Trent's argument, as I understand it, is not merely just that Protestants disagree. Every Christian tradition has internal disputes. They have different disagreements, and pointing to those disagreements would itself actually just prove very little, other than the fact that within Christendom, there are certain things that we agree on and disagree on. Trent's criticism, however, is that Protestantism itself, the broad movement of Protestantism, while I don't operate under this assumption, Trent and many others view Protestantism very broadly. It's a very broad umbrella that includes evangelicals and everything else. So let's just adopt his position for now. He would say that we lack a mechanism within Protestantism to help us avoid those disagreements, to help us bring ourselves into a consensus. Now, he points out the fact that these disagreements aren't just minor, that they actually affect the material life of the church. Now, not in the clip that I'm about to show you, but in other clips where I've seen Trent bring up this criticism. And again, it really is something to wrestle with and something to think through. And Protestants don't have to be so vulnerable that we take every criticism and go, oh, that's a straw man, or this is this, and this. Sometimes we can take a criticism and go, okay, let me work through that. So Trent takes baptism, and we all within Christendom believe that Christ commanded baptism. Yet within, and I'm going to say Protestantism, we disagree over who should receive it, what baptism signifies, and whether or not it is an instrument through which God gives grace, whether it ordinarily affects regeneration, and whether an infant who has been brought for baptism should be regarded as a member of the covenant community or not. Trent's right, these are not minor details that should be left off to the side, and they're also not abstract. They determine whom the church baptizes, how the church understands membership, and what it says God is doing in the actual sacrament of baptism itself, and whether another Protestant church is administering baptism faithfully. The problem, according to Trent, the Baptist opens scripture and concludes that baptism belongs only to those who make a credible profession of faith. The Presbyterian, on the other hand, would open up that very same scripture and conclude that the children of believers should receive baptism. Lutherans would read many of the same passages that Baptists and Presbyterians appeal to, and they would conclude that baptism is a means through which God grants regeneration and the forgiveness of sins. Each tradition lays claim to very serious exegetes, historic arguments, and a developed theology. Yet there is no authority recognized by the Baptist, the Presbyterian, the Lutheran, the Anglican that can hear all of these disputes and deliver a binding judgment upon all of us. That's Trent's main criticism of Protestantism, broad umbrella. We have no mechanism in place to guide believers to a consensus of belief. He sees us as fragmented and broken on what we can actually say is essential to the faith or not essential to the faith. Protestants can do and have formed confessions, they have synods, they have denominational courts, and those institutions bind the conscience of those within their jurisdiction. But again, that would be a criticism that Trent makes. So a presbytery meeting could bind my conscience but could not bind the conscience of my Baptist brother. The individual still has to decide which confession, denomination, or ecclesial judgment is faithful to Scripture. Trent's criticism is therefore that Protestantism has an infallible text, but no agreed interpretive authority capable of producing an authoritative consensus whenever sincere and learned Christians reach incompatible conclusions. The usual Protestant answer that these are secondary issues doesn't actually cut it, in my opinion, and this is what I say. It's okay to recognize that Trent does raise a good point here. I don't think that's wrong to say, and I think sometimes Protestants can be a little bit too tribal to admit that someone on the other side may have made a good point. So So let's go ahead and take a look at this clip from Trent, and we'll respond to it after.
And here's the criticism where I would agree with is I think mere Christianity is a good starting point. But I think a lot of people in your position who might be doing apologetics in this way might be thinking, all right, look, I think at the very least, I'm just going to lead people to the essential doctrines. And then if you guys want to argue about the non-essentials, that's fine. As long as you do it charitably. And I just want to lead people. Here's the bare minimum, the essentials. You got to believe this to be a Christian. These are the essential things. What I worry is that Protestantism doesn't have a mechanism for determining what that is. And that it's not even just, believe in God, believe in Jesus, because then it's like, well, how many, does Jesus have? What does the incarnation mean? Does he have a human mind? Does he have a human will? Because we have to get that all right to make sure you're Christian. Things about original sin, about moral issues. That's where I would be concerned is like, okay, I'll just lead them to the essentials. But the problem is the Bible never tells us what the essentials are. That's where I get a little concerned.
Okay.
I don't know what you think.
Protestant response to this should begin by actually admitting what is true. Protestantism, taken as a broad family of churches, has no universal court capable of resolving the baptismal dispute or other disputes that Trent has raised. Every Protestant communion that is out there has no pan-Protestant magisterium whose judgment would be recognized by Baptists, Presbyterians, Lutherans, Anglicans alike. Pretending otherwise is just us, to be honest, to quote the kids, coping. That being said, historic Protestants do have ecclesial methods for judging doctrine within their own communions. They have ministers, they have elders, confessions, catechisms, synods, and disciplinary structures. The Protestant position was never meant to reduce Christianity to an individual who is sitting alone with his Bible, who is deciding every doctrine for his or herself. Unfortunately, that has become somewhat of a thing in evangelical spheres, and I know that's going to upset people. It upset people in my last video as well, but it just is the truth. The Reformation churches produced public confessions precisely because they believed that the church had a real duty to interpret Scripture corporately and bind its officers and members to what it confessed. That answer, though, only takes us so far. It explains how particular Protestant churches reach their judgments. But what it does not do is it does not explain how Protestantism as a whole can settle the dispute between those churches. The Protestant eventually has to acknowledge that some serious disagreements may actually remain unsolved. The question is whether or not that admission defeats Protestantism. Trent's argument appears to move from the existence of serious disagreement to the necessity of a universally binding and infallible interpretive authority. Yet that conclusion does not follow merely from the difficulty created by disagreement. It may be desirable to have an institution capable of conclusively settling every major doctrinal dispute. The usefulness of an institution does not establish that Christ founded one, or promise to preserve its judgments from error. That claim has to be demonstrated from the apostolic deposit. The Protestant is entitled to ask whether Christ or the apostles teach that there will remain after their death an identifiable ecclesial body whose doctrinal definitions can bind the universal church irreformably. It is not enough to show that Christ gave authority to the church. Protestants already affirm the authority of ministers, of elders, and church courts. The disputed question concerns the nature and extent of that authority, whether any post-apostolic judgment carries the same freedom from error that belonged to the prophets and the apostles. There is also a distinction between reaching a final decision and establishing that decision is true. An institution may possess the jurisdiction to close a controversy without possessing divine protection from deciding it wrongly. Rome can give Catholics a formal answer to the question of baptism, but its capacity to issue that answer cannot itself prove that the Roman judgment is apostolic or infallible. The authority of the institution remains part of the argument. It cannot simply be assumed because the institution provides the kind of certainty that Protestantism lacks. The Protestant model undeniably carries a cost. Fallible churches can misread Scripture. They can divide from one another and remain unable to resolve important disagreements. And I don't think think, and this is just me personally speaking, I don't speak for any church, I don't speak for any other Protestants here on YouTube or anywhere else. It's just me thinking through things. I don't think Protestants should minimize that problem or act as though that the clarity of Scripture means that every sincere reader will reach the same conclusion on every major doctrine. The history of Protestant disagreement will not allow us to have such an easy answer. The Roman model also requires acts of interpretation and judgment. A Catholic must identify the true church, understand the scope of its authority, and determine which teachings are definitive, interpret the language of councils, magisterial documents, and understanding how later statements relate to earlier ones. Appealing to an infallible church does not remove human interpretation from the process. It places that interpretation within a different account of ecclesial authority. None of that makes Trent's criticism disappear. He has identified a real weakness in Protestant ecclesiology, particularly in forms of evangelism that have abandoned confessions, church courts, and meaningful doctrinal accountability. A Christian who says that he follows the Bible alone while answering to no historic confession or ecclesial body is especially vulnerable to Trent's objection. The Protestant answer is therefore not that fragmentation is harmless or that baptism and the sacraments don't matter. It's silly, I think we would all agree on that, and we wish that we were not fragmented. It is that unresolved disagreement does not give the church permission to claim an infallible authority unless Christ actually granted one. Protestants accept fallible ecclesial judgments because they believe that the church remains under the judgment of the prophetic and apostolic word, and because they have not been persuaded that any post-apostolic institution possesses divine protection from doctrinal error. Whether or not that answer is sufficient is actually the point I want to leave open. Does the degree of Protestant disagreement show that Sola Scriptura is incapable of sustaining the kind of doctrinal unity Christ intended for his church? Or does the Catholic level of certainty and authority that still has to be established rather than just inferred from Protestant fragmentation? I think Trent's objection places a serious burden on Protestants. I am less certain, though, that it proves Rome has the authority required to resolve it. Anyway, folks, that is just some of my quick thoughts on this. I am not looking to debate back and forth in the comments. I do want to hear your opinions. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm not here for an argument. I'm trying to work through a lot of this stuff in my own head. And I think it's good that whenever we can listen to brothers and sisters in other camps and realize, okay, they may have a point, or they may have raised a really good objection that I've never thought of before and I haven't researched and haven't looked into and haven't done the work to answer. So my video today is not to critique. My video today is not to critique Trent Horn or push back against him. It's simply for me to work through this and think through this in my own head, because to be honest, his objection, I think it bears a certain weight of force. I don't think it defeats Protestantism by any stretch of the imagination. I don't have all the answers either. I'm a layman. I make it very clear that I'm a layman. I really enjoy digging into this stuff, and I hope you do too. I hope it fosters a spirit of good conversation in the comments. Anything that is delving into dirty prots or, you know, papists or anything else in the comments, it will be deleted. That is not the type of audience that I'm trying to gather here on YouTube. So anyway, folks, please do like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please do let us know. God bless.